if we wanted to create a top 12 fantasy running back and we were using something like a 2K creative player or a FIFA creative player, how would you do it, right? If somebody asked you, I looked at the past top 12 running backs for the past 3 seasons. I crunched the numbers, I hacked into the mainframe, and I created essentially a profile of what a top 12 running back looks like. Remember, it's only 3 years of data, so it's not super statistically significant, but it's a nice snapshot. And it'll give a slight better chance of choosing a running back that could be in the top 12. But even more importantly, it can help you like avoid dudes who maybe don't match the profile of a typical top 12 player. So by the end of this video, guys, you're going to have 5 names, 5 running backs you can target who I think can either be in like the top 3, top 5, top 10, or top 12 of finishes this season in fantasy football. I hope you guys like this video. If you do like it, if you see it has value by the end of it, I would really appreciate a like and a subscribe. We have a couple of important questions to answer first before we hop into the data. How do we take the last 3 seasons and apply it to future production? It's a little bit difficult, right? Like, we're essentially guessing that these dudes are going to fit a profile of something that they haven't done yet. It sounds impossible, and unless you have a DeLorean, we really can't do it. But what most of us do in fantasy, where we like to use projections, right? And there's a couple people in the industry who have really good projections. Mike Clay is kind of like the industry standard. He kind of sets the standard. My theory is that a lot of other experts kind of create their projections after he does, or after Vegas releases their seasonal projections. And yeah, he's the dude that I'm going to go off of. So we have to essentially define what a top 12 running back looks like and compare it to the projections of those players, right? So if we have this kind of prototype or this persona of a top 12 running back, we then take the projections and we say, all right, which dudes fall into some of those categories based on the metrics that are actually kind of predictive, right? So let's talk about what a top 12 running back looks like. He's typically 25 years old. Now, there are outliers, obviously, and this isn't the most indicative piece of data like age because it's kind of a range. You essentially have an average, right? They typically will play 16 games in the season. Now, it doesn't account for the fact that we extended the fantasy season or they extended the regular season. They typically get about 60 targets per game, 48 receptions, 379 receiving yards, 2.7 receiving touchdowns, 246 carries, 9.8 rush touchdowns with a 4.5 yards per carry. So typically they're pretty efficient. So that's our persona, right? That's kind of what a typical top 12 fantasy RB would look like. Now, because these are averages, you obviously have you have your Christian McCaffreys who will get like 19 touchdowns, and then you have your ranked 12 running back who's going to get 7 rushing touchdowns. So the averages don't really tell the full story. It's really just a guide for us. For example, let's take Jamal Williams in 2022. He only had 12 receptions and 73 yards, but he was still the running back 10. So for Jamal Williams, it was touchdowns. A clear reason why he was a top 12 running back. Or Raheem Mostert last year is another really good example. Now, he kind of misses a lot of these categories, right? He was 31, so that puts him way above the age average. He only caught 25 catches for 175 yards. But obviously for Raheem Mostert, it was the same thing. He had 18 touchdowns. So that kind of made up for the lack of statistical production in these other categories. So touchdowns are very not sticky. That's kind of my takeaway. That's kind of what I want to reiterate. Touchdowns are kind of not a good indicator of fantasy production, to be honest. Like, it's one of those things where if they hit their projection, it's nice. If they exceed it, holy shit, you're super happy. It just means that they can miss their projections in other areas. And then you have occasionally your Christian McCaffreys who essentially hit their projections in every category. And then that's when you have like all-time fantasy seasons, right? So let's hop into the list of names to the dudes who I think can be either top 3, top 5, top 10, top 12. And the first guy on the list, this one's pretty easy. It's slim pickings. It's low-hanging fruit. It's Kyren Williams. I think Kyren Williams actually has top 3 potential. That's why I'm starting with him. So let's look at the projections. He is the 7th ranked running back by Mike Clay. He's projected to have 218 carries, 1,016 yards, 10 rushing touchdowns, 35 receptions for 285 receiving yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns. Now, the reason that I think he will not only meet his projections but exceed them is the situation he's in. I think Mike Clay, obviously these are like median projections. He kind of goes on the safe side of the projections. So the Rams offense is tremendous. It's one of the better offenses for fantasy production in general. That's pretty much all you really need to say, right? Like, he's got the touchdown upside. His projections put him kind of in that range of a top 10 running back, to be honest. And I think the receiving work that he's going to be getting is really going to give him that top 3 ceiling. And the reason I think he's going to get a lot of receiving work and he's going to exceed his receiving projections is because I really think we're over exaggerating Blake Corum's involvement in the offense. I think we're all assuming that Blake Corum's going to get like 30% of the carries or 40% of the work or something. Mike Clay himself has Kyren Williams only getting like 53% of the rushing attempts, which I think is way underneath. I think Blake Corum is going to be a great insurance piece. I think he might spell Kyren when he's tired or if he were to get injured, obviously. But I think the projections do have Kyren Williams only playing like 13 or 14 games this season, which might be why his totals are kind of down. But if Kyren Williams stays healthy and plays all the games, I think he's going to get like 80% of the snap share, and he's just going to be an absolute beast. He's going to hit all his projections and exceed them. I think 9.3 touchdowns or 10 rushing touchdown projection. I think he's going to blow that out of the water if he gets the work that I think he will be getting. So that's Kyren Williams. That's the first guy. The next guy on the list is going to be Isaiah Pacheco. Isaiah Pacheco is the 8th ranked running back on Mike Clay's projection list. He's projected for 220 carries, 979 yards, 8 rushing touchdowns, 45 receptions for 290 receiving yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns. So we see that Pacheco is projected to get more carries than Kyren, slightly less yards, slightly less rushing touchdowns, but more receptions, not that much more receiving yards, and not any more receiving touchdowns. So I think my thesis where I think Pacheco kind of blows that out of the water is that the Chiefs have the 4th ranked strength of schedule for running backs, meaning there's only 3 teams with a softer running back schedule than the Chiefs. Pair that with the fact that they're going to be winning a lot of games. They have one of the better offenses in the league. At least we think they're going to have one of the better offenses. You got Patrick Mahomes, who I think the Chiefs, it's in their interest to keep him healthy. I think they're not going to be trying as many like cute plays like they used to in the past. I think it's just going to be like, if we're down deep, we're going to feed Pacheco on first down, maybe second down, and then they throw for third. And Pacheco also is a threat on third down as well now. They see him as a 3-down back. Now, there's one small tidbit, and it's the fact that they did sign Samaje Perine yesterday. It's slightly concerning, but I do think it's just a depth transaction. I don't know if he's going to take a lot of work from Pacheco. There's a chance that he takes like some third down work. Maybe the occasional like 2-minute drive gets taken. Now, those are big, right? Those could be like neutral or negative game script or up-tempo game script is typically where a lot of players can really boost their production. So as long as Pacheco maintains some of that stuff and it doesn't all go to Perine, I think Pacheco should be able to smash a lot of these projections. And I think he has top 5 potential if he does do that. So next on the list is going to be Rachaad White. Rachaad White to me has top 10 potential. He's the 11th ranked running back for Mike Clay. 214 carries, 868 yards, 6 rushing touchdowns, 53 receptions. So he's got the most receptions on this list, projected for 394 receiving yards and 2 receiving touchdowns. So again, very clear thesis. He's projected for only 6 rushing touchdowns, but most of the carries out of the backfield, a decent amount of yards, which I think he can easily beat if he can improve his efficiency. But it's his receiving work that's going to make, where he's going to make most of his money. It's really going to be the thing that saves him, especially considering the fact that he did not look like a great rusher or a great runner of the ball last season. He's more of a receiving back. That's really how he saved a lot of his fantasy days. Now, again, there's a small tidbit or a small asterisk here. Bucky Irving could easily threaten that. He could easily take away that receiving dominance that he had last season. And if he does, it could be problematic. And I think he does miss this top 10 or even top 12 potential if Bucky Irving is involved in any type of way. But if Irving isn't involved and he can improve that rushing efficiency, I think it's a clear top 10 thesis. I think he smashes it, right? So I think that's a bet I'm willing to take. So I think that's why Rachaad White's probably moving upwards. And the next guy on the list is going to be Kenneth Walker III. Now, Kenneth Walker III, I think, has top 5 potential if things go right, or if things go as I hypothesize. So he's the 16th ranked running back for Mike Clay with 234 carries. So that's a bulk, like the biggest share of the carries on this list. 1,016 yards, 9 rushing touchdowns, 31 receptions for 231 receiving yards, and 1 receiving touchdown. So Kenneth Walker jumped off of the page for me in terms of the projections because he's projected to pretty much contend with Pacheco, with even Kyron when it comes to totals. I think that the knock on him, the reason he's going 16th is the receiving work. He's only projected to get 31 receptions and only 1 receiving touchdown. I think he smashes those. I think because he has such a high touchdown, rushing touchdown projection, I think it's just going to be like, let's feed the man, dude. He can carry this heavy workload. They see him as a 3 down back, which means his receiving projection should get smashed, right? And I do think that Charbonnet has had, or it's not that I think, like Charbonnet has really not had a lot of hype this offseason. I've not heard much out of camp about Charbonnet. Really, all of the praises have been sung about Kenneth Walker. And I think this coaching staff just ends up leaning into him. He's the much more talented back. He's still very young. He meets all the age thresholds, and he's the perfect type of candidate as like a dead zone running back who could easily propel into the top 5. And the last guy on my list is going to be DeAndre Swift. We'll try to close this one out quickly. I have DeAndre Swift having top 12 potential, maybe like borderline, like, the latter half of the top 12. Now, he's the 21st ranked running back according to Mike Clay. He's only projected to have 184 carries, which is actually better than I thought. I think a lot of people expect that Khalil Herbert and Roshan take a lot of early down stuff, and Swift resorts to being kind of a 3rd down back, more of like a, close to the line of scrimmage type back. But 832 rushing yards, 5 rushing touchdowns, 35 receptions for 249 receiving yards, and 1 receiving touchdown. So here is the thesis where I think he breaks it. They have the 15th ranked strength of schedule for running backs, which is pretty solid. That puts them right in the middle. They're projected to be 7-9, which isn't great, but it's also not horrible, right? Like with a rookie quarterback, often, they get cooked, man. They get shredded on the projections. He's still young, he's still very talented, and he's very fast. We saw it in the preseason. He did take a very simple like screen dump off for like 50 yards in the preseason or something. And he's coming off of his best season where, to be honest, he actually underperformed last season. I think like he went down at the 1 yard line like 5 times, and all 5 of those touchdowns went to Jalen Hurts on the tush push. So imagine if DeAndre Swift got all 5 of those touchdowns. Not only do the Eagles probably keep him, but he'd be ranked as like a top 10 running back going into this next season, even if he was with Chicago. I think we sing a completely different song about Swift in that event. And the last thing of why I think Swift should return value, if not like propel himself up into the top 12, is that they paid him $24.5 million over 3 years. So they went out and they paid the man. And it looked like they were using Khalil Herbert in the preseason, trying to shop him, seeing if they can get any type of value for him. They ended up keeping him, which is a little bit concerning for Swift, but I do think Swift just emerges as like this versatile back that can kind of do a little bit of everything for the Bears. I think he's just got the most big play potential for the Bears as well when it comes to the running backs. And I think they just lean on him because of that, right? So those are the 5 players, guys. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope it helps you guys. I hope you maybe see these guys and you have a little bit more safety picking them. Some of these guys are in the running back dead zone, so that's typically a risky place to take running backs. But if you do feel like you want to take a running back, these are the guys that I would probably be leaning with. Obviously, with a focus on Rachaad White, Ken Walker, and Swift, the other 2 guys you're not getting in the dead zone. But if this video helped you guys, I would really appreciate a like and a sub. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Let me know if there's anyone that you are targeting that you think can be a top 12 running back. A little honorable mention, I will mention Brian Robinson Jr. He almost made it into this video, but I looked at their strength of schedule and they're like, 30th, 29th, 28th, like in almost every category. It's brutal for the Commanders. But I'll catch you guys in the next video.